Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you to our, in my opinion, extremely interesting webinar, where we cover lots of important matters that concern everyone. Because, when you are living in any country, definitely there is one thing for sure, and one thing for sure is that you are paying taxes. And that's why, surprisingly, or to be honest, not surprisingly, when we announced the topic of our webinar, we saw huge interest from all the participants. And I'm very happy that you managed to join. Welcome. I will be very grateful if you can put plus, or if you can write where are you listening from, which city are you in, why you came here, and this way we will also start, okay, UK. Well, it's actually quite logical, because today, what are we covering? We're actually covering UK or Cyprus non-dom tax regime. And today, we will discuss with you very interesting topics. First of all, and I'm very happy that we have experts who will be covering this topic, which is and of the resident but not domiciled tax regime in the United Kingdom, resident but not domiciled tax regime in Cyprus. Very fascinating thing that not everyone knows about is the tax residency in Cyprus 183-day rule or 60-day rule. And of course, we will cover with you some property investment example. And I can see that we have lots of people both from UK and from Cyprus. And first of all, let me introduce myself and our esteemed speakers. My name is Anastasia Yanni, and I am the CEO and partner of Cyprus Sotheby's International Realty. I've been working in real estate for over 24 years. Actually, every year this figure is growing, but it's an amazing experience, and I really love this part. From our company, I am accompanied by Christoph Molitor, our property expert. He is a trusted consulting, investing, and real estate professional. He speaks so many languages that you can speak German, French, English to him, but most importantly, he knows the Cyprus market really, really well. Sotheby's International Realty is probably the largest international luxury real estate brokerage network in the world, with offices in 83 countries. And I think that the most important part of this introduction is that we do understand that our clients come from all over the world, and we can compare the benefits of Cyprus compared to the home country, or maybe in sometimes Cyprus is not the best property, not the best option. We work all over Cyprus, fully licensed, multilingual, and we are here to serve you to find the best property on the island should you wish to move to Cyprus. And I'm extremely excited and very grateful to our partners of today's webinar, Kendris. Kendris is an international advisory and fiduciary services firm for wealthy individuals, family offices, corporations, and institutional clients. And today we are joined by, first of all, by the partner and the co-founder of Kendris Cyprus, Sarah Gunnarvik. Sarah, would you like to make a small introduction of your company?
I would love to. Thank you very much, Anastasia. First of all, you can see also my contact details there if you need them in the future. So Anastasia said in the previous slide that Kendris is an international advisory and fiduciary services firm for wealthy individuals, family offices, corporations, and institutional clients. What does that actually mean? What do we actually do in Kendris? We help international wealthy individuals and family offices and corporations to structure and hold and manage their international assets. Wealthy individuals, many of them do not live in one country anymore. Life has changed. We don't live in one country. We don't have family members only in one country. We don't also only hold assets in one country. And this kind of international lifestyle that high net worth individuals usually have comes with certain needs. And Kendris is there to help you with those needs. What we do is that we structure your international assets and help you to manage them and report them and help them to become tax compliant and execute all matters that the family might need on the international assets and family members that they have. So you might have family members living in different countries, children in different countries. Someone go to university, they stay there, they go to university, while the parents live elsewhere. And you need to sort yourself out for efficient tax management, for efficient international reporting, and for succession planning in all of those countries where you have people and assets. Kendris is, we have 700 clients, 700 ultra high net worth families, individuals from 57 countries. So just as Anastasia, we understand that the world is much, much, much larger than just Cyprus. And we understand the background of those clients and the needs of such clients, international clients. We are 210 specialists working in Kendris, and we are more than 30 different nationalities. 40 of those specialists sits actually in Cyprus. Then I will do this. We are very proud of our DNA, Kendris DNA. We are a management-owned firm. We are not owned by any bank or any other person with specific interests. We are also very proud of our Swiss DNA. We are a Swiss company with Swiss roots and a Swiss long history. We promote our Swissness a lot. And we are deliberately excluding providing asset management services because we focus on wealth structuring, asset consolidation, controlling reporting, and governance. That's what we do. We do not do portfolio management and handle your money. We have a long history. You see there, 110 years. But it doesn't mean that we also look very closely to the future, and we are a company that look for digital solutions and provide digital reporting to our clients. We have 3 segments that we support: private clients, which is what we're talking about now, and what we're going to talk about today, relocation and international management of assets. We also serve corporate client, CFO services, and we also serve institutional clients with funds, Cyprus and Luxembourg funds, family funds, or alternative investment funds. Then let's see, can I go for the next one? Yes. We have offices in Switzerland, UK, Cyprus, Luxembourg, Dubai in the IFC, and in Singapore and in the US. Then I very, very proudly present David Knight, who is our Managing Director of Kendris UK. Please, David.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, my name is David Knight. I head up the UK office. I'm the in-house UK tax expert for Kendris. I've been working with Kendris for 13 years now. First of all, a small apology for the quite scary photograph. I think perhaps the phrase "a face more fit for radio" would be kind of appropriate there. I'm presenting a rather downcast UK side of the equation today, but this event is more about the relative advantages of Cyprus over the UK rather than the UK itself. I suspect that most of you listening will have a very good grasp of the UK res non-dom regime, although I will cover it at a very, very high level. I think I should say that I believe that the UK is really kind of shooting itself in the foot with the changes that that are going to come in very, very shortly. I think this is going to lead to a net loss to the exchequer rather than a £4 billion enhancement, as Labour have been saying for some time. And I think this is all really for ideological and political purposes. I think it's going to hurt the UK and Labour's growth agenda. But anyway, let's move on to the topic in hand. This is a slide of the timeline for the introduction of the new regime, which is literally 2 months away today. The UK non-dom regime has been around for actually over 200 years, you might be surprised to hear. But it's going to go on the 5th of April. The non-dom regime, as probably most of you already know, it enables broadly people not born in the UK but who are resident here to pay tax, to pay UK tax on their UK source income and gains, and any foreign source income and gains that are emitted or brought to the UK. So if they're not brought to the UK, then on the whole, you don't, as a resident, UK resident, you won't pay tax on them. As I say, this will come to an end on the 5th of April. So this is the timeline here is obviously very high level, but in summary, from the 6th of April, in principle, any person already resident in the UK or moving to the UK will be subject to tax on their worldwide income and gains. There are some kind of transitional rules and some softening of the rules. For example, individuals in their first 4 years of UK tax residence will pay no UK tax whatsoever on their foreign income and gains. And this is something that's called the FIG regime. There are also some transitional rules that, for example, the catchily named Transitional Repatriation Facility, that will allow former res non-doms to bring untaxed foreign income and gains into the UK and to pay special, much lower tax rates on those remittances to the UK. I think the rates are going to be 12%, going up to 15% in the third year. That transitional facility will come to an end on the 5th of April 2028. One of the main issues I think that is particularly irking the high net worth community in the UK is the application of 40% inheritance tax to their worldwide assets after 10 years of residence. I think a lot of non-doms are happy, would be happy to pay a little bit more tax, but that 40% on worldwide assets is I think, you know, it's just a pill that they're not prepared to swallow. And I think anecdotal evidence is that they are the high net worth people are leaving the UK in their droves. I read something that said 10,000 people last year left the UK. The next slide kind of speaks for itself really, and just provides a comparison of the UK and the Cypriot main personal tax rates from a tax point of view. As you can see, Cyprus compares very favourably. So I won't dwell on that for too long. We thought it might be helpful if we showed you an example, a made-up example, but an example nonetheless, just to set out some numbers. This is Jane. She looks very happy in the photograph. I think the photograph clearly was taken before Labour's election victory last year.
She's very cute.
Well, I can't say that, obviously, but you can. So she moved to the UK 5 years ago. She's a res non-dom. So the 5-year point is important because she won't be able to take advantage of the FIG rules, the 4-year rule that I mentioned earlier. And so as of the 5th of April this year, she will fall within this new regime completely. She's resident from year one, 5 years ago when she arrived. UK earnings from employment income 450,000. She sold a startup in 2022 for 20 million. That was an overseas gain, therefore no UK capital gains tax. She's invested the money wisely in overseas banks, Switzerland and Luxembourg, 20 million assets. And she lives off her employment earnings and investment income from the portfolio. The investment income, which is typical for this type of arrangement, the investment income, the offshore investment income is not remitted to the UK in order to take advantage of the current res non-dom regime. And so, again, the next slide, it really speaks for itself. You can see the numbers there up until the 5th of April. The only tax she's paying is in relation to the UK employment source income. After the 5th of April, she'll pay tax on everything. So you can see there's quite a kind of a stark difference in the tax liabilities pre and post 5th April this year, an increase of 565,000 tax in total. And I think as I said earlier, the major aspect to this, I think for high net worths and particularly the ultra high net worths, is that 12 million figure on the 30 million portfolio value. So once she's been resident in the UK for 10 years, and she could be kind of 3 or 4 years away from that, she will be liable to tax, the UK inheritance tax, on her worldwide assets. So from 0 to 12 million. I think that is the one major thing that is really irking the high net worths, and I think meaning that a lot of them have chosen to, unfortunately, to leave the UK. So that's my very brief summing up of the UK res non-dom tax system, and now over to Marios to tell you about the advantages that Cyprus has to offer. Over to you, Marios.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marios. I work with Sarah in Cyprus. I'm a director in private clients accounting services. We set up Kendris in Cyprus in 2017, and we have been working closely with international clients since then. I just want to give you some information, not to make it too overbearing, about relocating to Cyprus. There are a couple of options summarized on the screen here as EU and non-EU. So for EU, there is freedom of movement within the EU, so there is no visa requirement to come to Cyprus. As an EU national, however, you do need to have a simple registration with the authorities to legally live and be employed in Cyprus, what we call the yellow slip. It's a very simple process. It means you can move, live, and work in Cyprus. As a non-EU individual, there are various routes. We will talk quite a bit about the investor's permit on the next slide. There is a route which requires employment or self-employment in Cyprus. Again, there are certain things you need to do, certain applications that need to be made, but it's fairly straightforward. In all cases, you will have tag-along rights for family members, which I will explain on a different slide. And we put up there in brackets this Cyprus EU blue card. It has been announced, but we have not heard too much about it. It is an option that can be on the table in the future, but we are waiting to get some more information. Specifically, if you are in the UK and you have applied for a Cyprus residency permit before the 1st of January 2021, you can have access to the EU setup. Otherwise, you have to go fully as a non-EU national. So that is the difference. So what are these immigration permits for investors? So an investor in Cyprus can spend 300,000 euros plus VAT on any one of these routes. One would be to purchase a brand new residential property, so a house or an apartment, which Anastasia will show. There are very, very nice properties in Cyprus at 300,000 plus. But I will leave that surprise to her later. Then you can purchase non-residential property, so an investment property, as in land and buildings, offices, and so on. Again, the value remains the same. It has to be 300,000 euros. Another route, which we will not go into too much detail, is investing in a new or existing Cyprus company. It has to be an operating company. And if you are an operating company, you must have 5 employees. In the case of investment through a Cyprus fund, you will purchase units and the value is still 300,000. We are not going to go through that in any detail today. So, who can join? Now, obviously, the spouse is a family member, gets a tag-along right, so spouse can join in any case. And then you look at the children. So on the side of children, you have ages up to 18 years old. Those are considered dependents and can relocate to Cyprus with the permit holder. Obviously, there is an application that needs to be made, but there is nothing special about that. For children aged 18 to 25, there's various rules, one of which is if they are studying abroad, they apply for a certain type of permit. If they are studying in Cyprus, they apply for a different kind of permit. But they can tag along quite easily. Now, if you have 18-year-old plus children who are not studying and they still want to apply, then those children will require a higher investment from the permit holder, but they can tag along as well. So it's fairly straightforward for children to tag along with the family, to study in Cyprus, and to live here. Now, I will say that time-wise, it takes anywhere between 2 to 6 months. We have an excellent relationship with the immigration team here in Cyprus. We work very closely with them, and we can assist on any permits you would like. I just want to say there are some questions in the chat, which we will address towards the end in combination with any other questions that are gathered. So what about the Cyprus tax resident non-domiciled regime? So Cyprus has a non-dom regime similar to the one of the UK, but different in the way you would obtain it. So you will move to Cyprus under one of the permits, and you will spend either 60 days plus per year or 183 days plus. With the 183-day rule, you become tax resident by default by spending 6 months plus 1 day in Cyprus. You do not have to have 183 consecutive days, and you do not have to be employed in Cyprus to go under this route. Now, the 60-day rule is a very special regime that Cyprus introduced a few years ago. It says that if you spend 60 days plus in Cyprus in a tax year is January to December, so any 60 days at any point of the year, you can apply to be tax resident but not domiciled. Now, this comes with very special rules, many special exemptions, which you've seen on a previous slide by David. I will go through them in detail in a different slide. But what is essential in both cases is not to become tax resident in any other country. Now, a lot of people move to Cyprus, they travel quite a lot. they move to one location, another location, they work in different countries. Now, different countries have different rules. And as Sarah said in the introduction, the world has become very international. And high net worth individuals like to live in many different countries, and they like to do business in many different countries. And if they choose to live in Cyprus, they may choose to do that business in Cyprus, from Cyprus, but they may get caught out in other countries under different tax residency rules. So it's very, very important, especially under the 60 days, not to become tax resident in any other country. The difference with the 183 days is that in this case, you need to be employed in Cyprus. There are, again, special criteria to look at, but it's fairly straightforward. You just need to be employed in Cyprus. You can also be a director of a Cyprus company, which means you are acting as director but not getting paid. That is also an employment in Cyprus. So how can you apply for either of these? You need to not have been tax resident in Cyprus in the last 17 out of 20 years. Makes a lot of sense. You are moving to Cyprus. You wouldn't be tax resident here in the last 17. And once you get the tax residency, you are allowed to use it for 17 years. So you can benefit from all these special tax rules for 17 years from the first year you move to Cyprus. So let's look at those. So what do you get as a Cyprus resident non-domicile? You are taxed on your worldwide income. So they will look at all the income you get from anywhere in the world, but you will get a 50% discount on the income tax. Anastasia will present in a separate slide the tax brackets of Cyprus, essentially 20 to 35%, with the first 19,500 euros tax-free. But that gets a discount of 50%. So you are essentially paying a rate of effectively 17% on your worldwide income. If you have paid income tax abroad, you can apply to get a credit, what is called a foreign tax credit. And most of the times when you present the right information to the tax authorities in Cyprus, you will be credited back and not have to pay additional tax in Cyprus. As opposed to the UK, we have never had, and we still do not have in 2025, inheritance tax. So your estate in Cyprus or abroad, whatever that may be, will not be subject to inheritance tax at the time of death. So it's an easy location for children to inherit wealth generated by the family in their lifetime. There is zero gift tax and zero wealth tax. So as a Cyprus resident non-domicile, you get to benefit from the 50% discount for 17 years as a whole. You still get zero inheritance tax, zero gift tax, and wealth tax going forward regardless. Now, what else? In the case of Jane, and we will see a worked example in the next slide, there is zero profit on investments. So if you are selling shares, if you are selling bonds, you do not have to pay tax on the profit you have generated. If you get dividends, rent, or interest income, so basically investment type income, you do not have to pay tax on any of those earnings. We will see there is a small charge that is 2.65% general health service, but that is minimal in a year. And this you benefit from for the next 17 years. Now, Cyprus will continue to not tax profits on shares, profits on bonds, even past the 17 years. So it's very important to make it clear, and therefore we go through a worked example on the next slide. If Jane would move to Cyprus, you see the picture, again, recapping what David said. Jane, up until the 5th of April, with this investment type portfolio, would be paying 200,000 on employment income only and no inheritance tax. After the 6th of April, when she loses her non-domiciled status, she pays plus 565,000 on her annual income tax bill, and upon death, the inheritance tax bill of 12 million, assuming the value is 30 million at a future date. As a resident, non-domiciled tax resident in Cyprus, you pay zero tax on everything except the tax you have paid on your employment income in the UK. And again, you can apply for the foreign tax credit in Cyprus and not have to pay additional tax. As there is no inheritance tax and there is no gain of interest, dividends, or profit from the sale of financial investments, all of this income is fully exempt in Cyprus. Up to 180,000 euros a year, you have to pay this general health service, which is 2.65% at the bottom of the screen. This is basically around 5,000 euros per year. So in any case, it is a tiny amount if you get caught by it. But I think what everyone is expecting now is to see what all these tax savings can be put into in Cyprus. And I leave it to Anastasia to tell us what Jane can expect if she were to invest in Cyprus.
Actually, I think after all these figures, Jane can expect so much, just like hopefully like our listeners as well. Because, you know, yes, we know about taxes, but sometimes these numbers they become so huge. You know, we always say that, you know, move to Cyprus and you will save money. But actually, the way you presented through Jane's journey is like we can see that only on the saved taxes, what she can expect and how wonderful she can spend this money, and not even all of that. You know, when we are talking, obviously, like now we were talking about taxes. And Marius mentioned that in order to get access to all these benefits, you need to become tax resident in Cyprus. And to become tax resident in Cyprus, you need to spend some time here. And we either have 60 days or 183 days. And in both cases, you need to have a place to stay or to live. But actually, what we have noticed since the introduction of these tax incentives, that very often people start and they say, you know what, we just come for 60 days. But then when they visit Cyprus, they actually see what an amazing lifestyle they have here. And that's why we decided to mention several things what you can expect when you are moving, or when you're just like, even if you're staying for 60 days. There are so many advantages. Like, you know, the first thing, I don't know, actually, I forgot to ask David, guys, what is the weather now in the UK?
It's beautiful. It's 25 degrees, blazing blue sky. Yeah, it's like this. Well, not 340, maybe only 300 days a year. No, actually, I'm in Kent, and actually today is bright blue skies, but cold, about 7 degrees.
Yes, I can see that Magda is saying that today is 5 degrees. Actually, in Cyprus today was quite cold. I think we had about 14 degrees and we were all freezing. But it was also sunny because, you know, indeed, Cyprus is the sunniest point of the European Union. So we have literally 340 sunny days per year. And guys, when you combine sunshine with taxes, life becomes very beautiful. But when you add on top of that the environmental issues, you know, in Cyprus, we do not have any heavy industry. So every year in and year out, we have cleanest beaches in Europe, excellent quality of air, fantastic food. I'm sure, again, like if you have visited Cyprus, put plus if you agree that the food in Cyprus is fantastic. There is also excellent healthcare. And especially now when we see what is happening in Spain, what is happening in other countries, in Cyprus, the local population is very hospitable. You know, I'm a foreigner myself, but Chris is a foreigner living in Cyprus. We have never, ever experienced any hostility, always feeling very, very welcome. Even though it's an island, it's so easy to travel. Cyprus has global connections to every directions. What is very important for you as well, that the legal system is British law based, so everything is very understandable. And for the personal comfort, it's much easier to live in the country where English language is widely spoken. And in Cyprus, I would say almost everyone is speaking English. And what is very important, the documents and the business language is English. Cyprus is very safe. Again, it's not the point of our discussion today, but compared to UK, and not only to the UK, in general, Cyprus is considered one of the safest countries in the EU and one of the safest countries from the smaller countries in the world. If you move to Cyprus, if you relocate, of course, you are thinking about education, you are thinking about healthcare and lots of lifestyle opportunities. Cyprus is also a very interesting place with rich historical heritage and excellent infrastructure. It's always very tricky to talk about living costs in Cyprus. And that's why when we've done that slide, we've done, of course, on a lower slide, because we all know that someone can spend a little, someone can spend a lot. But on this slide, you can see that if, let's say, it's a family of two without children and living normal life, you can look at 25 euros for water, about 60 euros for electricity bill. Petrol is €1.40. The public transport is not that good, but it is getting better. So you will only pay €2. Restaurant meal can be anything. You know, you can spend lots of money, and there is so much variety of food and of excellent quality. If we're looking about healthcare, looking into healthcare, every time I'm more and more proud to talk about it, especially what concerns National Health Insurance Scheme, because it is really, really good. So if you are European, then you get access to the system automatically. If you're non-European, but you got the investment residency permit that Marius was describing before, then you have access to the system as well. And what it does for you, you have your family doctor, you only pay €6 per each visit, you have practically free tests and operations, discounted or free medicines, and access to public or private clinics. But what is even more important, because in Cyprus, there are actually lots of doctors. You know, this figure, just think about it. We only have 204 people per doctor. What does it mean in real life? It means that practically never you have to wait to see the doctor. And in the modern life, and especially after COVID, I think healthcare is extremely important. And I know, as I have family in the UK, that sometimes you have to wait so long just to be seen. If you are not part of the national healthcare system, then of course you have access to private facilities. And private visits to the hospital cost between 30 to 50 euros. What is also very interesting, of course, it's like we're moving a little bit to the joke part. You know, they say that life expectancy for men in Cyprus is 82 years old, and women never die. I sort of like it. Okay, let's move on. So we covered with you the healthcare, but what if you're moving with a family? What about education? How can my kids progress? So in Cyprus, regardless of nationality, all the children have access to free public schooling. Of course, we need to take into account that there they follow Greek curriculum and education is in Greek language. So it's easier if your kids are younger. At the same time, there is really good choice of private schools. And most private schools work based on British curriculum. And the prices compared to the other European countries are quite reasonable. So you would say that for primary school, you're looking between 3,000 to 6,000 euros per year. For middle school and seniors, between 5,000 and 10,000 per year. Cyprus is pushing a lot now to become the center of the higher education of Mediterranean. So more and more universities are opening. More and more British universities are opening their branches in Cyprus. So if you stay in Cyprus, your child can progress as well. And of course, huge choice of sports and art schools. And in general, I would say that being a Mediterranean country, Cyprus is a very family-oriented country and very child-friendly environment. What is good, that when we're talking about education and entertainment, it's not only about kids. Third age hobby groups are also becoming more and more popular. So like in the past, sometimes people were saying, oh, life in Cyprus is boring. Not anymore. So we covered all the beautiful things. Let's go back to the taxes. So let's say if Jane decides to work, of course, there are other matters, but let's say that she is working after all the deductions, etc. Then the income brackets that we have is the first 19,500 are absolutely tax-free, and then the maximum is 35%. Okay. Now, so I think that Jane first saw the horrible figures. Sorry if I'm saying it, but I'm not in tax, so I think I'm allowed to say that. So first, she saw the horrible figures if she stays. Then she saw from Marius that actually she can save so much money if she moves and stays at least some time in Cyprus. And I covered what beautiful lifestyle she can have. And now let's move. Where can Jane invest the money that she saved by moving to Cyprus? With our company, Jane has a choice. She can invest in any area of Cyprus. Maybe she would prefer Paphos, Limassol, Larnaca, Famagusta area, and we're talking about Ayanapa, Protaras, and Paralimni, or maybe she wants to go to the capital, Nicosia. Any options can be covered. But now we will talk a little bit just to give you a little taste of few properties that were selected as a personal preference of our Chris.
Good afternoon from my side as well. And last but not least, let's look at some properties. Before we dive in, I'd like to add one big pillar, in my opinion, which we did not mention yet, why Cyprus is so an amazing place to live in, is that it's very smooth and easy to network and connect with other expats too. We do have a lot of people coming from outside of Cyprus, and then they have lived in other countries before, and that was one of the biggest criteria why they considered to move then finally to Cyprus, and saying that here the expat community is very well connected, especially in Paphos area where it's very internationally based. So we saw and we know the numbers from Jane. And as you can see here, it's easily possible for Jane to even buy 2 assets and save taxes equivalent amount of money for 1 year only. Because obviously we do not have British pound as currency here, but we have the euro. So converting it will be easily possible, especially because you can also obviously not only buy completed projects, but you might also buy a project under construction. To give you an example, this is a 2-bedroom apartment which is completed on the market. For those who know Paphos a bit, it's located in Kato Paphos. That means it's walking distance to all the amenities, to the sea, to the harbor, to bus stations, and therefore it makes it a perfect blend between personal use and or even investment opportunities. To show you a bit how it looks inside. So very modern style, interior design, and obviously nice views as well, because the nice thing about Paphos is that we don't have skyscrapers here. So it's not like Limassol or Nicosia, where you will see very tall buildings, but here in Paphos, we do not have. So actually most buildings are capped at 4 floors maximum, and that gives a very nice general touch to the whole city, but also beyond. Because especially when you are living on the villages in the mountains, you do see Paphos and the sea, and it just gives a very nice accommodating feeling. To give you an example, what is also possible to buy for private residency, for example, we do have a lot of listings and very nice secluded houses in the villages, a few minutes drive from Paphos and to sea. For example, a big 5-bedroom villa in Tala, which is just below 2 million price tag. That means Jane needs to wait 3 years more or less until she can equivalent this amount of money, which is not that long in life as well. Here, this property is what we like a lot about this. It has a very huge plot. That means because this house was built on a slope, you actually have the possibility to build a second house just below. And because of the slope, you will not get any view hindrance, because the roof of the lower house will be still lower than what you see from this picture. That could be obviously a very nice add-on, because it is possible as well, due to the size of the plot, to even split it. And then let's see a bit the pool area of this house as well. And you can imagine here how amazing it is with 340 sunny days. Okay, not all of them are summer sunny, but still, I would say the majority of them. Already in April, you can easily barbecue outside, have the nice views, sunset views, and just dive into the pool. This house, you will not see it on the pictures, but it is actually one of the only houses in the whole area which has a private tennis court as well. So especially for the tennis lovers, you can apply that, or for people who would love to play even paddle tennis, you can obviously convert the court for not that much amount of money. We do have properties as well on the market which have a different level of price tag and a different level of quality and finishes. This one is a bit further away from Paphos, let's say 15 to 20 minutes, and still you have lots of restaurants and amenities within a 5-minute drive only. But you live in a complete serenity of valley view, sea view, mountain view, and just pure nature around yourself. So this property comes a little bit over 5 million asking price at the moment. So Jane would need to work a little bit more than just a year or two, or save taxes than more a year or two. However, it is still not even 50% of the inheritance tax which you would save. So that is, in our opinion, one of the best houses we have currently in the market. It has the best sea views, overlooking all the villages, even close to the airport of Paphos. And the house is very big. It has over 350 square meters internal area and up to 200 square meter covered area outside, as you can see on the screen behind the pool, where you have the garden area or some other covered verandas and balconies. Here again, the plot is very huge, means yes, at some point, at the moment, no, but there's estimations and in the future it's possible that the building density will increase. And then once that happens, there's no guarantee to that, you can build a second house as well on this plot. But in my opinion, the privacy is more worth than just building a second house. Just to give you a bit of an idea how the house looks from the outside. So super nice pool area, 4-bedroom. You do have amazing views in the morning until the evening. Obviously, we do have many other properties as well. So no, you do not need to choose one of those 3. You also do not need to choose Paphos mandatory, although obviously I would not mind. But we do work in other districts as well, and we have very nice properties, apartment, townhouses, and detached villas in every single corner of the Republic, I would say.
Thank you, Chris. I am sure that Jane would be very happy with your selections, but now I can see that we have lots of questions. So let's go to the questions and answers. So guys, I will be reading the question, and then based on the question, I will address it to our experts. So I'm living in the UK for 25 years. How do I become non-dom by buying a property in Cyprus and becoming an EU citizen?
I think when you're saying non-dom, I assume you mean non-UK dom. I perhaps didn't make it completely clear, but the concept of domicile from a UK inheritance tax perspective is going completely, and it will be based purely on the length of residency in the UK. And once you've been resident in the UK for 10 years or more, your worldwide assets will be subject to inheritance tax in the UK at 40%, subject to any reliefs, business property relief, agricultural property relief, spousal exemption, stuff like that. But it's going to be based purely on residence, not anymore on domicile. Domicile as a concept for tax purposes in the UK will go completely with effect from the 6th of April.
You know, from the point of view of Cyprus, you know, just like, hold on, where is it? Okay, I lost it. Okay, so here you have two different questions. One question is how to become a non-domiciled tax resident. To do that, you need to spend in Cyprus either 60 days or 183 days. But to becoming a EU citizen, you need to stay and live in Cyprus for much longer. Here we're talking about immigration point and tax point. Currently, if you want to become citizen by naturalization, Mary, if I am not mistaken, you need to be 7 full years out of the 10 years.
Correct.
Okay, so, but again, guys, do you see this red button on top of the screen? We will be very happy to answer any of your questions in more depth if there are still questions after this webinar, and it is our free gift to you. But let's go back to the questions. If I spend some time in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, will the stay be counted as a part of 60+ day rule? If I spend some time in Turkish Republic, will the stay be counted as a part of 60+ day rule?
So I think it's important to say that it's not a recognized state, it's not a recognized republic, and by coming to Cyprus and going to the Turkish Republic, so-called of Northern Cyprus, you are effectively leaving Cyprus. So I would not bet too much on you count it as 60 days. So I'm afraid we don't have an answer because it's legally not a recognized state. So
I would also mention that anything that we mentioned during this presentation only refers to the Republic of Cyprus. Okay, so next question. Actually, like I'm going to okay, very important question. Is Cyprus joining Schengen? Question from Mike.
Okay, so I think all the evidence is pointing towards that. We are in advanced stages. Actually, the president of Cyprus made official announcements that Cyprus is on the right track to go into Schengen. So in the foreseeable future, yes, it looks like we will.
I would answer the same way. Do you have to move pensions to Cyprus as a tax resident? And if so, how does this look?
I think it's a blended question here, David. Maybe you want to comment on the UK pension side for a for that part, and then I will say about Cyprus.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the pension side. I think you'd have to look at the double tax treaty between the UK and Cyprus. They often pensions often get allocated to be taxed in the jurisdiction in which you're resident. So it may be, depending on what the treaty says, that there won't be any tax in the UK, but there will be tax in Cyprus. I don't think you have to give pension to Cyprus.
Sorry, David. Sorry.
So I don't think you have to
on taxing pension
in the
income.
UK.
Sorry.
Pardon? We're moving
Sorry, I was
to...
just... Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, carry on.
Okay. I'm a UK EU passport holder currently residing in the UK. Need to set up a brand new company, so it's tax zero in Cyprus for capital gains tax purposes. Once I'm Cyprus required for tax purposes, and then living in the UK for 3 to 6 months at a time.
Okay, so this person is a UK EU passport holder. I want to address one of the questions in parallel, Anastasia. One of the questions that has come up is, what about dual citizenship? For dual citizenship, I will say the best way is to choose the easiest route. So if you have an EU citizenship, don't use the UK passport to immigrate to Cyprus. You can apply either way, but it's easier if you do the EU route. So if you are an EU passport holder and you want to set up a Cyprus company, we are not covering today the corporate setup of a Cyprus company, but it is entirely possible to set up a Cyprus company. Now, 0% tax in Cyprus for CGT purposes, I'm not sure what that is referring to. But I will say that on the living in the UK for 3 to 6 months at a time, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I think it's not possible to lose your tax residency in the UK if you keep going back after you have left, but that's for you to...
No, it's pretty much it's a day counting exercise really under something called the UK statutory residence test, and 3 to 6 months. We don't have just a bulk standard 183-day rule here in the UK. There are kind of automatic tests for non-residents and automatic tests by which you can be UK resident. And then if none of those apply, you look at the sufficient ties test, and often 3 to 6 months in the UK would be sufficient to make you UK resident from a tax perspective. So you'd need to look closely at the statutory residence test to see if you were in fact UK resident.
Mm-hmm.
I urge the person with this question to maybe sign up for a consultation. We're happy to look at this in more detail if that's interesting. I noticed, Anastasia, sorry to jump in, the chat seems to be going back to the pensions. I just wanted to say that in Cyprus, there is a special regime for taxing pensions. Now, in Cyprus, there's 2 ways you can tax it. One is to apply a flat 5%, subject to a minimum if you receive past something like 3,000 euros per year in pension. It can be taxed at 5%, whatever amount that is. The other route you can follow is if you are earning more than the 3,000 euros per year in pension and you're earning up to the 19,500 euros, you would go down the tax brackets route, but you have to choose in the beginning. When you first become tax resident here, you have to choose how you tax your pension. So you cannot choose every year to change the taxation basis of your pension. I just wanted to mention it because I see we are going back to pensions there. So
yeah, because it's very important. And here again, you save so much money. Just like you say, you either choose 5% flat or the income tax. Okay.
And if you choose the income tax route, you have 50% tax savings as a non-domiciled tax resident. So even if you choose the income tax route, you are in a very good position to pay very little tax on your pension.
We have a question from John. For someone who has property in the UK but lives in Cyprus for the last 25 years, do they have inheritance tax if they want to transfer their UK property to their children?
Well, if they're living in the UK at the moment, they're probably non-domiciled, and if they own the assets personally, then those assets are currently within the UK inheritance tax net. I'm assuming we're talking about residential property. So you can give those assets away to your children, and provided you survive 7 years, no UK inheritance tax. But you have to give them away, and you can't retain ownership and access to the rental income and stuff like that. You have to properly give them away, and then provided you survive 7 years, no UK tax.
We have another question connected with inheritance tax. For UK-born person, how to remove domicile of birth and therefore avoid UK inheritance tax? How to obtain Cyprus domicile recognized by UK HMRC? Is it Her Majesty? Which is
HM Revenue and Customs, yeah.
okay. David, will you be able to answer, or Mario?
I'm just trying to find the question.
Yes.
I think it's the most commonly asked question by every UK person, David, is how you get rid of your domicile and avoid inheritance tax. So
well, as I said earlier, from the 6th of April, domicile will no longer be relevant from an inheritance tax perspective. If you're in the UK for 10 years, then you're subject to UK inheritance tax on your worldwide assets. The domicile will no longer be relevant from a UK tax perspective.
But if you leave UK and live abroad for 10 years and become domiciled in other country, will it affect the inheritance tax or no?
Well, yes, it will. If there's going to be something called a tail, which will mean even once you've left the UK, you'll need to be out at least 3 years before your assets fall completely outside the UK tax net. But if you own UK assets directly, they're subject to inheritance tax anyway, and they're subject to inheritance tax now under the old rules. If you own UK assets directly, they're already within the UK inheritance tax net.
Okay, guys, I think that there are lots of very specific questions. So once again, if you want to find out more, please book your free consultation so we don't lose your question. And I also apologize if we don't answer all the questions. Please book free consultation. We will answer. So maybe let's take a couple more questions. So paying corporation tax in the UK, but would live from dividends on Cyprus, this would be tax-free. How would you need to report this? Would you use your UK bank account, or would you better transfer it to a Cyprus bank account?
I think the bank, the location of the bank or the bank account is not relevant. What is important is if you are living in Cyprus, either under the 60-day rule or the 183-day rule, you become tax resident in Cyprus. You are taxed on your worldwide income. This is a dividend. It is fully exempt. You pay no tax in Cyprus on the dividend you earn. So in terms of reporting it, then there will be UK tax that you pay on the profits of the UK company, and then there may be UK withholding tax when you pay the dividend to any individual outside the UK. But in Cyprus, there is no additional tax on that dividend. So in the UK, if you were living and working and earning money there, a dividend would be subject to 39.35% tax when it is paid to you as an individual. If you're living in Cyprus, you don't pay any tax on that. I hope it's a simple reply in the end, that there is no tax.
We have one more question about, let me read it. I think there is a confusion here. You might not be liable to pay tax in Cyprus, but even if you are considered as tax resident in Cyprus, you can also still be liable to pay tax on foreign income in those countries themselves, for example, the UK. If you have income from the UK, you still pay tax in the UK regardless of where you are a tax resident? No?
No, I mean, the answer is kind of possibly. You would pay UK tax on UK rental income, for example, regardless of where you're resident. But if you received, UK, as Marios was just saying, if you're receiving UK dividends from a UK company, the UK doesn't apply withholding tax on dividends. And as a non-resident, then you wouldn't pay tax, UK tax, on those dividends. And same with interest. One example where you would pay taxes on UK rental income. You would pay UK tax on UK rental income regardless of your residence position, and you would need to submit a UK tax return.
Mm-hmm.
But most other incomes, UK source income, would be tax free if you're a non-resident.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Let's do one more question. It's a general question. Do you have experience in Cyprus IP box regime? I am interested in booking a free consultation as long as you have experience on this.
So the Cyprus IP box, just to explain to everyone, it refers to intellectual property. So to the extent that you own any sort of patents or any intellectual property relating to special technology, and you would like to hold that under, for example, a limited company like a Cyprus company, there is a special rule they call the IP box. It's essentially a special tax regime on intellectual property. And what happens is we have adopted the EU OECD accepted model, which has what they call the nexus fraction, whereby you calculate tax at much lower rates on the income that you earn from intellectual property. So if, for example, you own a software under a Cyprus company, or you own a special patent, you are receiving what is called royalty income. And that royalty income would be normally subject to the corporate tax rate of 12.5%, but under the IP box, you can reduce that to very, very minimal levels, one-digit tax percentages like 2-3%. There are also many other ways you can structure through a Cyprus company to achieve the same as the IP box. What is called the notional interest deduction, which achieves very much the same with very little effort. I am more than happy to take a consultation with the individual asking the question. But as we have not covered companies, maybe a topic for another session, I'm not going to go into it in any more detail here.
And because Mr. Antonia asked the question twice, maybe we can cover as well, if we can answer it. What about capital gains tax on a property in the UK if you transfer to your children? We can't hear you.
It will depend on where you're resident. am I looking at a different question here? If you buy a house in Cyprus, that's a different question, isn't it?
Yes.
If you, as a non-resident, UK residential property is a slightly different tax regime applicable to it. They've changed the rules a lot over the last probably 5 to 10 years. If you transfer it to your children, you'll probably, depending on whether you've ever lived in that property, if it's a rental property, you probably would pay UK capital gains tax on residential property. But if it were commercial property or something else, then that would be outside. As a non-resident, you wouldn't pay CGT on that. But a transfer to your children is generally treated as a deemed disposal at market value.
I think that even through questions, we already saw that there are some topics that are definitely of interest. I think that during this conversation, and thank you guys for such an, somehow you managed to talk about taxes in a very interesting and comprehensive way. Of course, there are still so many questions that I'm sure that we will check from the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. But I think that overall, we definitely established a really good understanding of what is happening in the UK now. What would happen if you, like Jane, decides to move to Cyprus from the tax point of view and from the lifestyle point of view? And I think that we just want to give huge thank you to the Kendris team, and huge thank you to our wonderful listeners who were so active and were answering so many questions. And we would like to invite you to visit Cyprus, and we will be very happy to meet with you personally as well.
Just thank you very much, Anastasia and Christoph, for hosting. And thank you very much for also presenting Cyprus in such a beautiful light. I'm happy to have joined and to have presented today.
And we are looking forward to help you come to live here and meet us in person.
Thank you. And David, we are waiting to visit. We're waiting for you to visit Cyprus as well.
I will. When the weather cools down a bit, I'll come over to Cyprus for sure.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you.